Jim, morning. How are you?
Good morning, Gordon. How are you? Yeah,
Yeah, no, very well, mate. Very well indeed. Lovely to have you here. Thanks for joining us. I know you're busy. Thanks for sparing the time. This is fun. This is just the second of these videos that we've done at School Notices. It really is a way to hopefully create some interesting content for people to look at on their phones or whatever during this dreadful kind of COVID lockdown. But also just to give people a flavour of. Yesterday, I did four mates who had businesses, the troubles that they've had in this environment, but the pluses they've pulled from it and how business goes on. So it'd be really interesting to hear from you, because not a lot of people will know what Heritage do. I think it's brilliant, but it'd be interesting to hear. You've been in this sector for a while, right? So the independent school sector is your turf.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I came into teaching straight out of university. I worked at Papplewick. I was only going to do a couple of years there, and obviously 13 years.
You got dragged into it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think in many ways happiest years of my life were teaching at Papplewick, a brilliant school in Ascot for those who don't know it. My son went there, and just absolutely fantastic school. And then after that, set up Heritage Education. Effectively, what I saw at Papplewick was a lot of international students coming into a full boarding environment, and just out of interest, really, sort of having taught PE and geography and various different subjects, chatting to the kids and working out how on earth they managed to find Papplewick, that quite a few people in Ascot didn't exactly know.
Yeah, interesting.
Sort of tucked away. How on earth did they find Papplewick?
Yeah.
And it really came down to recommendations from friends or closest to Heathrow Airport.
Yeah.
And I thought there's got to be a better way of finding a school.
Yeah.
So I came up with the idea of Heritage Education to help families internationally, whether they're expats living in Hong Kong or Singapore, or natives living in different regions of the world.
Yeah.
How could they find a school that's going to suit their child? So set that up and headed out to Asia, out to Hong Kong, Singapore, where I found my first client, and they were a family moving to the UK. And it was really interesting. They used the service, and their son went to Cheltenham College, and did really, really well. Loved it.
So you met them. You sourced them, or you went to chat to them, and you suggested Cheltenham College, and put the two together.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what's different about Heritage is it's a very personalised service. So I will actually spend a lot of time with the family themselves, because I travel, more pre-COVID, travel extensively into certain regions to meet up with families, to talk to them, meet the children who are going to be coming across, and really get to understand who the family are, what their values are, what they want for their children, where the talents and interests of their individual kids lie, and actually work out what's going to be the best school for them, and then arrange for them to come over, assist them with their visit. And really, it's sort of the great thing about it is no two families are the same.
Yeah. And do you think that with the current situation, with COVID and all the rest of it, everyone's in lockdown, can't move anywhere, that presumably, I know from our discussions with schools that admissions is a real issue. Always getting new pupils in a kind of seamless way is tricky. So anything that helps that is a real plus. But now it must be especially different, right? That must have changed your business.
Yeah, it has. I think, obviously, as with everyone, everything's gone online. But I think what's interesting is that there is still a huge desire from families internationally to still educate their children here in the UK. I think we still have a really unique set of schools in this country, and an approach to independent education that isn't like anywhere else. So it is renowned globally as being, one of the great destinations for international families to educate their children. And I think that hasn't changed. I think it spooked people, definitely. And I think what it's done actually is people who potentially were going to come for September 2021 for 13 plus may wait until sixth form, and I think a lot of people are just ploughing on it, regardless, actually. And I think planning for the best situation and actually things going back to normal, which I'm confident they will. I
Yeah.
look at how schools have managed the situation, and it has been amazing that schools have just made the best of a bad situation. And, you know, my hats go off. I mean, I was a schoolmaster, as I said, and, you know, I think if I'm being completely honest, I'm really very glad that I'm not in the hot seat out of school having to run this, because they are
100%.
incredibly hard
Yeah.
and doing an amazing job. But I think, you know, going back to what you were saying about admissions and all the rest of it, I think it's tough, but I think because the students are having now to do everything online rather than have the ability to build a relationship with a school in the lead up to them joining, that's a big miss. And I think it's a big miss for families, and I think it's a big miss for the schools, because I know the schools admissions teams work tirelessly to really understand the applicants and the cohorts that are coming in. And I think that has just made things more difficult. But, you know, a lot of online school tours and all the rest of it, it's all they can do. And, you know, most of the schools are doing an excellent job of providing the best substitute for the real thing.
Yeah. And I'm with you. I mean, I speak to, as you know, we speak to a lot of schools, a lot of heads, a lot of marketing teams, and I am staggered. You know, I've got one boy left in the system, but I'm staggered how well they've done to cope with, and I still think they get a hard time from the parent body on the whole. I think it's a really hard job they've got, and I think on the whole they've done very, very well. And actually, in speaking to a lot of these heads, you know, you talk about COVID's been a nightmare, but actually quite a few pluses have come out of COVID in terms of how we all work together. And, you know, ironically, it's much easier to get a meeting on Zoom with people at schools than it was to try and get a slot in their diary and drive off and go and see them. So, you know, there've been pluses all around, but a lot of schools have said that personal touch, and although we're all apart, it's kind of, you kind of feel a closeness, a sort of togetherness in this battle, which they really like. And they're looking to carry that forward kind of post-COVID. So it's interesting. I think there's some good changes.
I agree. And I think the sort of word community and togetherness is really what the schools are all about. All schools, okay, but I think it becomes drawn into even more focus when you're looking at boarding environments. I mean, as you know, your boys have been through the system. My children are currently going through it as well, and I worked in it. That togetherness and that sense of community is massive in a boarding environment. And I think that's what's missing. And I was thinking about that really this morning in the lead up to chatting to you, really trying to sort of order my thoughts. And, you know, I think one of the real positives of having had this forced break is that when we come back, I think, you know, the how grateful we'll be just to do the simple things, the normal things we took for granted before. Rocking up with your boots down to the rugby pitch and having a rugby session, or joining a choir, or being part of a play, or going to a lecture, any of these fantastic things that are all put on at these great schools. You can do the lecture online, you can do this, you know, various bits online, but actually nothing quite beats being there yourself, being with the people, listening to someone, chatting to others afterwards about it when you walk back to the boarding house. You know, so there's so much that we're missing, but actually maybe we'll just be a bit more grateful for it when it comes back, and maybe drink from the well a bit more often when we get the opportunity.
And lots to look forward to as far as that's concerned. Now, in terms of, you know, here right now, right here, what are you doing most with parents? What element of you know, the school introduction business, etc., are you sort of focusing on right now?
So I'm busy, but, you know, it's all the good stuff that I used to really love about my job: meeting up with the families, going and visiting the schools, seeing the schools themselves, seeing friends who work in the admissions teams or people I used to work with. That's what we're missing. So we're still able to function, but again, it's obviously all done online. And actually, I think in some ways has actually made me more useful to parents, because now many of them aren't able to go and actually visit school themselves. So I've had quite a few UK-based families, Brits who live here, like you and I, who've got in touch and just said, well, look, you know, we're really interested in going and visiting this school, but we can't. We've seen the video. What do you think of it? Do you know the school well? So actually, interestingly, in some ways, it's actually enhanced my position, because families can't go and take that look themselves. So actually, you know, in the sort of prelim to them being able to go back and do that in the summer, they wanted to try and keep things moving and sort of keep their plans moving forward. So they actually used me to find out a bit more about the schools.
Yeah.
And so the service still works, and actually in some ways is more relevant in this lockdown than it was possibly before. So I've been keeping going, and with international families, it sort of stays the same, but we get up to a point where all that work's been done. We've sort of looked at a long list of schools. We're going to bring that down to a short list of schools, and then the next stage is to come and visit. So we're now in the process, in a holding pattern really, for when schools are going to be open, to the extent that they can invite visitors to come and see the school. Because nothing can substitute actually visiting the school, breathing the air, meeting the people. Nothing will ever really be a substitute for that.
Yeah, no, I get that. I think that's right. And look, I've spoken to, as you know, spoken to schools. I know they appreciate what you do, because there's nothing. I think it's nice where people have got that experience, having been in the system. You know what it is.
Yeah.
You're getting the right children for them, and you're really. I think you're sort of sorting a proper issue as far as they're concerned. I think admissions is especially after COVID is going to be a tough area to sort. But I know you're appreciated for what you do, so it's great.
Yeah, well, I hope so, and I think that, you know, the key really is assessing on a number of different levels, you know, what's going to work well for that child, and then taking those children to the right schools. And they've got to do it from there, obviously. Yeah. But you know, it's really getting them in position. Yeah. So it's fun. I love my job. I'm very lucky because I've managed to keep in the industry that I love, but no marking.
No marking. Yeah, I can imagine. That must be a real joy. Well, look, Jim, thanks so much for your time. I know you're busy, and thanks for backgrounding me. I'm going to have a look at my background design. But anyway, look, lovely to talk to you, and keep safe, and we'll catch up later.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much.
Cheers.